Welcome to the DADnB podcast with Zoo22, Zach, Good Shepherd, John, and Kevin, who is to be named later. We started this podcast just to track our progress as dads trying to get tracks signed to drum and bass labels that we like. Most of us have been involved with music for a long time, all of us, and we've known each other for a long time. So we thought this would be a good way to track our progress, and maybe even have some people on that can help us. And if anybody's listening, maybe they can learn or at least commiserate with us as we, take our lumps trying to make some good drum and bass. So I have known John for 30 plus years and Kevin for 20
96
plus years. Yeah, so long
it's college
time. John, where are you coming from?
Dallas, Texas. So I don't think it really matters where you're from, because you can really be from just about anywhere nowadays with how easy it is to get connected with folks.
So yeah, John and I were in a DJ crew late 90s, early 2000s, 222. I started producing a little bit back then, and Kevin and I were in bands together, including Somatic, which is probably the best project we were ever a part of, or at least I was.
New Track was good.
Culver
New
City
Track
Croquet
was good.
Club.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
but New Track I consider New Track to be Kevin and Wade. And Wade we may have on this podcast as well. You're sure to get some good content if Wade is on.
The Culver City Croquet Club was just really nice.
We came up with Culver City Croquet Club right when Jack Johnson, whose music a lot of people like, came up with Culver City Dub Club. So that was so long ago now that really we could revive Culver City Croquet Club. That was more trip hop, hip hop, down tempo type of stuff. But yeah, and then I got into drum and bass through John. I had started scratching and doing the hip hop thing, and I think, I'm not ashamed to admit that it was going and seeing Aphrodite and wearing some 30-inch flares one time only affair, but it happened that I saw it live and I felt the bass in my chest, and I was like, this was not what I expected at a rave. I expected trance and house, which I wasn't really feeling at the time, and drum and bass kind of blew me away, especially jungle and raga at first, and then eventually started buying records, and we all started playing together with some other members of our crew, came up with a club night, and so I got FL Studio, which back then there was no FL Studio. It was called Fruity Loops. I think I got Fruity Loops 2 as a crack from Kevin. I know I got it from Kevin on my Windows 95.
I had it too. You gave it to me too.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
So, Johnny and I collaborated on a couple of tracks, and I made a few tracks, but it's before YouTube. I really had no understanding, and I think Kevin was our golden boy. He got good grades. I don't really know how he did as much partying as we did, and somehow got good grades, but I'm not good with homework. Kevin would be sitting in his room nodding his head, and he would either be making a beat or doing his homework like a good boy. And so you have an honors degree mixed with audio production or something like that. What is it?
Well, I had honors liberal arts and then radio, TV, film, and I was one or two classes shy of a music minor. And within radio, TV, film, I took all the audio production courses I could, because I really wasn't that. I mean, of course I like film, and we're video editors now. So, but really I wanted the audio engineering, because the dream was always to be like a recording engineer or music producer. So, I took some audio engineering classes in the music school, and then I also took some a Pro Tools class and some other audio engineering classes in the radio, TV, film department. And,
Nice.
Been playing bass since 7, but then I kind of got out of it and then moved to Dallas for high school. And that's when I really got into music. But I was still doing sports as well. And then my friend in high school had an early sampler, one of the, because his older brother had a sampler. And so I got to see like a EMU E6400 back in the day when everyone was all about the Z-plane filters. And I didn't even understand what that was, what anyone was talking about. But this was back when Ronnie Size Brown Paper Bag was big. And I was just like, this is awesome. You know, I want to do this.
I think that's when we all got hooked, right,
Yeah.
Kevin? It's like
96-ish.
I have a vivid memory. I think I know Zach was there. I think you were there too. But when we used to hang out in y'all's fraternity house, do you remember MTV late at night would have they had like an electronic amp?
Oh, I didn't remember that.
And they would play Brown Paper Bag every now and then. I just remember being like,
Thick.
this is the music. This is the sound I've been looking for.
I'm not I grew up playing the drums thinking like electronic drums and electronic music was stupid. Why would you want, why are you trying to like shortcut your way around learning an instrument? And then I think it was in like 97, well, really probably like in 96, 97, I was visiting with John listening to, and I never listened to Pink Floyd. I was always into Zeppelin. I was into blues. I was into rock. I was started to get into jazz and stuff. And I listened to Pink Floyd and the Doors, but especially it was Pink Floyd that I was like, okay, these noises cannot be, there you go.
Nice.
Like these cannot be made.
Whoa.
I've got that one.
Wow.
Those cannot be made by like, a guitar or drums,
Yeah.
and they're awesome. And around the time I saw the documentary Modulations, which is about the history of electronic music, and they make the point that electronic musicians they're just trying to mess with sound. Like it's not about anything but just like taking it out there. Then hear sampled breaks layered on top of each other, like, because for me, my dad asked me why I liked all these different kinds of music when I was a kid. And I said, well, it's the drums. I like funky drums. I didn't know what to call them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I found out about drum breaks, like when I was in college, I was like, this is what the whole time, like what has been like affecting me, but I didn't, unfortunately I didn't like start digging for them right then and there. But, that's what kind of opened the door to me really getting into the roots of hip hop, and then eventually John introducing me to, drum and bass, and what I felt like we were so late to the game, which is kind of funny now because that was like 98, that was 6 or 7 years after like jungle started to really form into what we know. And 170 beats per minute, I guess I'm not an expert, but was probably only like 94, so 93. So if that, that's like what led me to getting into it. But then,
were you not into big beat at all, like Chemical Brothers before?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah,
because that was for me in Dallas at I don't remember AMP on MTV, but I do remember late at night on Friday or Saturday on 94.5 The Edge. They had a radio station that would play electronic stuff, and of course the good stuff started around 11 or 12, in the evening, and I would record them onto cassette tapes, and I'd fall asleep, because it would by 2 a.m, and then I'd drive around all week and I'd listen to the cassette tape of all this crazy electronic music that you never hear. It was pre-internet, because this was like 94, 95, 93. Right. So pre-internet. So there was no way to find out about any of this stuff when you're in the middle of Texas.
Yeah.
Well, but you were in a much better place than we were. Ecstasy was created in Dallas. So Dallas had an early underground music scene that San Antonio did.
Yeah. And that's what 94.5, I think the Edge was sort of, supporting, and they would, have shows down in Deep Ellum and stuff. But, but yeah, for me, it was like, right? Yeah. And, I was one other one, but, for me, it was like Big Beat and like Chemical Brothers and, Propeller Heads, Decks and Drums and Rock and Roll, that album or, you know, it had
That-
some cool spy
Yep.
music.
Propeller Heads, remember them?
Yeah.
And that
Fat
was
Boy
like,
Slim.
yeah.
Fat Boy.
And that's where I was like, all right. Cause I was the same as you, always like into acoustic rock, you know, like real instruments. But I was like, this is great because it was mixing real drums, you know, and amping them up through a ton of compression and processing, and then putting on futuristic sounds. So I was like, this is the best of both worlds. You know, it's like, we've been doing guitar music for 50 years. Let's advance it, you know? And so I always like the hybrid of like some organic instruments and then let's get futuristic on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and
You
that'll
know-
be interesting. You know, that's something that we'll talk about going forward. Is that like now drum and bass has been around for, you know, geez, 30 years. Like, what is new? I mean, you know, the foghorn has come and gone. Now they're talking about the wobble. Like,
Mhm.
you know, these like drums made in serum. Then there's throwback. I mean, I just sent Johnny G that disc 2 from High Contrast.
High Contrast.
Like 80s, 90s. I mean, it's whatever you do with it. And I think for me, it's always going to be like, I have a day job. And that's the next thing that I wanted to talk about is like, we all now, you know, I think I never knew what I wanted to be as a kid. I mean, I either wanted to write comedy, be a rock drummer, or be famous for something like performing. And I explored music and it never paid me. It always cost me money. And up till 2 a.m. trying to get $60 from some guy. And I spent $100 on records that week. Like, you know, it was hard for me to find that sustainable, especially also coming from the background that I come from. And I think we can all, you know, Johnny and I, our folks are from the Midwest. My folks grew up poor. My dad put himself through college. Like the fear of not having money.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's in my DNA. And so to say, oh, I'm going to be a famous DJ and go all in, I was never able to do it. And the other thing but the one thing I always knew I wanted to be was a dad. I knew I wanted a wife and kids and a family, and I got lucky and things played out pretty well for me. You know, we're all very connected in this group, and I moved out to Los Angeles because Kevin was like, if, you know, I could not get any work or any money saved, and Kevin was like, come out here, there's work. And he'd been through it. You know, you had gone and worked at a music studio and made sub $7 an hour and saw that you know, please correct me if I've got this wrong, but my understanding is that saw that the money wasn't that what, you know, it was a long road to try to get money that way. And then reality TV had an inroad, and you and I both within a few years got a good paycheck doing something that for me, I never could have really imagined. It's a little bit in the world of taking samples, putting them in order, and creating something out of it. But yeah, I mean, I was discouraged by trying to make music. So now I've got a paycheck, a family, and a ticking clock.
And that's the podcast.
And that's the podcast.
Ticking clock. Yeah.
I mean,
no, I actually, I didn't, well, I did make sub $7. I was interning for free at a recording studio in Austin before I moved to LA. And then my friend called me up after I had already got a gig working for a production company. And he said, hey, do you want to take my job? I'm quitting soon. He was an assistant engineer, or like a runner. He wasn't even an assistant engineer at a really big studio. It was either the record plant, or I think it was maybe the record plant. And I said, dude, thanks for calling me. You know, what does it pay? And he said $6. And I was like, oh, wow, $600 a week. That's what I'm making as a PA at this production company. And he said, no, $6 an hour. And I was like, wait a second. If you work 40 hours a week times $6, you're making $240 a week.
Los
and
Angeles.
I was like, I'm sorry, buddy, but I can't. I'm going to ride this TV thing out. And, you know, I can't believe I'm saying this, because that's all I wanted to do. But that money was just totally, unlivable.
And John, while we were still doing 222 is when you met Heather, and not long after that.
Yep. We were in San Antonio, and then I moved to Houston, and I DJ'd in Houston for a couple years. That's when I hooked up and I was roommates with SDF3. Remember John Currian?
Yeah. So
I still did the music thing, but then kids came along, like we were talking about, right? So it's like, that became my thing. And
obviously
I love being a dad, and that's what's, sorry, my dog just barged in here, is the most important thing to me.
How old are your kids now?
13 and 11.
So you're going to be an empty nester and, not that long.
Don't tell me. Don't tell me that. Yeah.
I mean, the 11-year-old is gone in like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, I'm fully aware of that.
Cooper.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Zach and I are just at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really in trouble, on terms of the, luckily Zach is the productivity king. He should, I think Zach needs to go around and give seminars on how to, how to be productive.
Exhaust
you could
yourself.
be like
I
Tony
don't
Robbins.
feel that way. Now, when you have no idea how, like, John, you don't talk to John enough, because John not only is like, learning from Winslow and learning from Alpha Rhythm, and making his own tracks, but also staying connected on Discord, which that's my biggest like struggle, is like, this podcast is a step, and I'm like scared of trying to make a commitment and do like say, oh, I want to do this every week, because like there's just, I don't,
start with one, right? Like we said, just start with one.
Yeah,
we're doing it. But yeah, like I make some tracks, but like I recently got my track featured on Mike Kiss's Twitch live stream, and see Johnny, he's one of these young kid the live streams. And, what is it? And got my track on the stream live, and
it's a face chat,
and no one commented, and like John got his track played, and like a lot of people gave feedback. And I think part of the reason I didn't get any feedback is because I don't have a presence, nobody, or maybe it was just a raging piece of shit and I should quit and I'm terrible. But it was also,
I should die.
I hate myself. That's an inside joke for our millions of listeners.
That's a Truck Boy.
Truck Boy.
Do you have that somewhere?
Oh, son. I still have a VCR with which to play it.
But I think, Zach, you were saying with the live stream, I think it's a fair point. Maybe not as many people knew you. I don't think your song was bad at all. Also, I've been played on that live stream 4 times now. The first 2 times is when I didn't even go by Good Shepherd. I started following Mike Kiss on Facebook, and he was posting like, hey, I'm doing this live stream on Facebook. Check it out. It's like new tracks that people are making. I was like, oh, cool. That's kind of cool. And I listened, and I was like, wait a second. People are submitting songs and they're getting feedback. And this was right when Zach was like, dude, this was when COVID hit March, April. Zach and I were talking on Zoom at night because we didn't really have any other interaction with people because everybody was freaked out. He's like, you got to start producing. And then I saw all these people kind of making it and making music. And I also saw how bad some people were. And I was like, I think I can do better than that. And then that's where it all started. Like I started following, you mentioned Patreon, Kevin. Like I started following Johnny Mike Kiss on Patreon, and then he invited me. You basically get access to the Discord server. And I was like, Discord server? What's that?
I know. This might be enough. Speaking of tracks and making them, do you want to start playing some?
I haven't heard anything you've made, Kevin, so I'm excited to hear it.
I'm pleased with it. It just needs a little bit of tweaking.
Yeah.
for the time in the dirt. Retrograde motion of the earth, hopes in the hearse. Buried in the dirt with the worst and the best. Life's always simple, yet we make it complex. At least this magazine on those you set. Another victim of the game. Keeps going round, so we need to show our worth. No patience for the time in the dirt. Retrograde motion of the earth, hopes in the hearse. Buried in the dirt with the worst and the best. Life's always simple, yet we make it complex. At least this magazine on those you set.
Ja. Real quick time check. We have till 6:30, correct, Chance? We still have half an hour, right? Kevin, you're the one with the time limit, so
yeah.
Okay. Cool, man. I didn't feel like it sounded when I was testing out audio. Mine sounded through my laptop. It sounded really weird, but that sounded good. But maybe it's because it's like mastered.
It sounded weird from my end. It sounded weird. So I think when you're sharing,
Johnny hated it so much he left. So.
Yeah. And like I had it halfway up on my volume, and then I had to hold my headphones like this because it was so loud in my headphones.
Oh, I think Zoom was probably tamping it down because it wasn't that loud on my end. I don't know about you, John, but I'm also deaf.
No, it was perfect actually. I mean I was adjusting it, but I have not touched the volume since you stopped the track and we're talking. So
Yeah.
it was fine.
Yeah, good comparison. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do we do now?
Is there another track?
All right, or do you want to
Hold
talk
on,
about it
hold
at
on.
all?
Can I give some feedback? I won't go too deep on it. All I'm going to say is I'm really impressed. I thought it was the sounds, like your sound selection is really good. The ideas.
Wait. You said, "Can I give some feedback?" and then gave it. You didn't say, "Can I get some feedback?" or "Can I give some feedback?"
May I give some feedback, Kevin?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, just saying.
It's good. Well, I figured he'd want to hear it's good. So the ideas are really good. The one thing that I notice in most people that start doing drum and bass struggle with is the arrangement. That's the only thing. Like you said, you have a lot of ideas, and the ideas are there. It's the way you go with a sound for 16 or 32 bars. Like your Reese is really good. That old school bass line was cool. I heard the high bass you're talking about. I like that. Like just letting those ride for 16 or 32 bars or how you do it. But then does your song, I noticed around 320 is where, or even at 242 is where you bring in that old Reese again, the good Reese. There's no, I didn't feel like there was a break, right? So it's real, not saying you have to do all drum and bass like this, but very formulaic is like, usually there's a break in the middle that kind of just, and I don't know if you had that in the song. I might have missed it.
Yeah,
the bass
it's there.
Dropped,
it's there. Yeah.
The bass dropped out in the middle, but
the Reese leads you into the break, and then the break is when the vocals come back in.
They came back. So,
and that's got a smaller snare, and that's got a different bass sound actually. And then the drop bass is different. And like I said, I just copied a new tone and that's what a new tone track did. They brought the vocals back in on the break. So this is like 100% of a ripoff of a new tone structure, because that's where I'm at.
People won't know that. People won't know that.
I heard the bass come out in the middle, but it did seem like it wasn't like enough of a dip down and then a build back up to kind of know we're in the break before the second drop. I feel John on that, but I think that's another thing about having everything super loud is perhaps there wasn't enough of a dynamic, to know that you're just in terms of the waveform. You can usually look at it and there's quite a dip here. Algorithm tells me I get too quiet in my breaks. But,
interesting.
Yeah. To me, I like everything about it, but a simpler version of what John said is do, 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 for 5 minutes is like the second drop when just the sub was on, I was feeling it more. So I'm cool with it, but it's I thought arrangement wise it was kind of fine because it's elements were coming in and out. It was changing. I just thought maybe halfway through the first drop, add another break to give some urgency. And then I would change up that rhythm because that rhythm just by the second drop when that same rhythm came back in, I was you've got that cool extra bass, kind of that swirling Reese that's so badass. And I said, all of this, it sounds so good. It's just
intro was good too.
It's part of the feedback that I got on Disguised Urge wasn't that the bass sound wasn't good. It was just that by the end you're just ready for Then for my track, I think they're looking for more of what you have, which are those kind of sprinkled in extra different bass noises. But for me, that dun 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 dun, it's so.
I guess I need to make the second drop more different because the drop bass is different in the second. Well, the whole second drop is slightly different, and especially the descending bass gets a lot more hectic. But it sounds like it should be more, the whole bass needs to be more different. And frankly, that's a note that I had.
Moving the melody, not like, as far as I'm concerned, the sounds are fine. Like the drums sound good, bass sounds good, melodic elements are in those space. I hear them all. I like the vibe of the track. I like the like whatever the chord progression. It's not really that kind of track, but like, it's just that main bass melody, it gets a little old. Like halfway through the second drop, at the very least, dropping the high bass out and just letting the sub pump would help. But even then, a different rhythm, I think, would be awesome. But to me, that's not like all this hard work that you've done in engineering it. I'm talking about, don't touch any of that. Just rearrange the melody of the bass a little bit, or do nothing and ignore what I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, what I thought about,
track.
well, that's where I got, I had the same note for myself that at one point my idea was to take these 5 serum for the high frequency bass and do different combinations of the 5 serums, so that, the dun, 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 and just have more modulation on the high bass sounds. And I've just put in so much work. I was just like, you know what? I just want to get this thing out the door,
That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, that's the thing, is like, what I think would be cool is if it's like, it goes, you get 16 of dun 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 dun, and the next one's like dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Dum dum dum. So like you're taking that noise and just moving it onto the amp.
Change up the rhythm.
Right. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, and that might save me a lot of work re-engineering, because it's the same sounds.
Exactly. Like I think
same sounds, just a little switch up.
There's enough of that. Like you'd have to change it a little bit.
Yeah.
But like there's enough of that. It's simply just It's just like, how techno will be like, they'll have a boom wham boom boom wham boom 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 wham boom, and they'll just shift it. And it goes boom, 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 wham, boom, boom,
Yeah.
And it's like it totally changes the feel, but like pushes the track forward. So, all right.
Cool. Good feedback. Thanks.
Next up.
All right. So, this song I made in October. It was still when I was fairly new. I'd say not beginner, maybe more intermediate in terms of making tracks. Layered a lot of breaks. Found some guitar samples that I threw in here. A lot of like chopping up the guitar sample, some reversing of the guitar sample. The atmospheric that I got was a sample that I dropped in. I think I spent about maybe 25 hours on this track. The reason I chose this one, I've made a lot more tracks since then that I think is better, but this one's got the best feedback from everybody. I think it's probably because I've shared it with the most people. Also, if we continue to keep doing this podcast, I anticipate playing a lot more and a lot better tracks. So I'll just go ahead and hit start. Okay.
Nice.
Did it stop sharing?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sweet. Nice vibe.
Vibes.
Did Zach tell you about the vibes comment? Yeah.
Well, does that mean people don't like it? Is that what they say when they don't like it?
It's like a safe comment, right? It's like it's like the idea is good. You might not fully be executing it, so it's hard to tell, right? It's just a safe comment, right? So, anyways.
No, but it does have a nice vibe. I mean,
yeah.
What I like is that it's not so dense like mine, and I think it's hard with those kind of tracks to find. You've got a lot of sounds coming in and out, but none of them stick out as like, ooh, that sound doesn't work. And I think when a track that's a little more sparse like that, it's hard to find sounds to come in and out that don't sometimes distract or take your attention away. So my question for you is, how long did it take you to find all those little high-pitched arps and, things?
Guitars.
There's a lot of, kind of stuff coming in and out, but it kind of works and flows.
Yeah. I mean, and I know we don't have a ton of time, but I'll go back to your first answer or your first comment, which was keep it simple and make sure you have good samples. So I think that's one of the main things is I just found samples that I listened to and I really liked. They sounded full. And a couple of them, I felt like I could just make a song just on this one sample. Because there's really two different guitars. There's like a Jimi Hendrix kind of watery guitar, and then there's like a funky kind of lick guitar that bow, 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 bow.
West Coast.
Yeah. Those two is what I started with. And then I came up with the bass line. Well, actually the drum breaks came in quick, and then the bass line. But then like the ARP and the little ticking along noises, I added in after. And that just took time. I used Hive for those sounds. It's just going through presets and like finding ones that I like and then going in and adjusting, the ADSR on them, adjusting distortion levels, delay, reverb, and just kind of fine tuning it until it sounded right.
It's like what's the blow blow?
Yeah.
Is that a sample or is that?
Yeah, that's a sample too.
Okay.
Even the diva vocal, I've spent hours going through Splice vocals just to find a quick one shot, and so many of them are just garbage. Just even finding that little vocal sample is kind of a victory.
So what I do is I will buy a sample of like that Say You Love. It's like 1 second. That is a 16-second loop of some woman just singing, and I just cut out a piece and then just put a bunch of reverb on it, right, and some delay. And I actually, the first time I did this, I had a female, and then I pitched it down so it sounded like a male vocal. So it's like, say you love, and then it was like, say you love, like lower. And I was sticking with that for a while, and then I was like, no, let's just keep it simple. So
and then is that bass on the drop, did you put an LFO on the bass or did you program out all the notes?
So yeah, so that was pure luck. Okay.
Because it's kind of similar to my bass line. Like I had that same.
Yeah. So it's a gated filter. Basically, it's a low pass gated filter.
Okay.
So it chops it in and out.
See, I did it the other way. Mine is actually individual notes, so that's why I was curious how you did it. Yeah. It's all like 16 notes.
So the bass, the sub bass in the first drop is pretty much the same sub bass in the second with that gated filtered on there. So no rewriting of notes.
Yeah. No, yeah, I programmed mine in on my push, and so I was banging them out like that,
Yeah.
Cool, man. It's good.
I'll go. So I don't know. I mean, this track, I started making 3 different tracks, and this is the one I decided to finish. and partly because I really like the vocal sample. I don't know what else there is to say about it. It's like, honestly, I'm so fried that I have to like listen to it and then remember what I was going to say about it. But, you know, I really mess with the bass. You know, we hear so much talk in these discords and stuff about piano. So like, I really get worried about the piano, but I like the piano. I want it to not sound like a beautiful grand piano. I want it to sound like a little bit computerized piano. I don't know why, but that's what I liked in this song. And and it's kind of a single piano line. There's a little bit of chordage in there, but it's mostly just doubled octaves. Yeah, I mean, the main thing is like getting all these elements to work together, having the bass come through. And I think one of the things that I've gotten too focused on is making long bass noises with distorted noises on top of them. And that's part of what's washing all my mixes out. Now, I want to be able to do that when I want to do it and not have my mixes wash out. But in this case, I was like, okay, I'm going to change the melody of the bass a little bit so there's some silence in there. And in the end, I'm pretty happy with it. But at this point, I've listened to so many times. I'm like, really, like, I don't even know if it's good anymore. And I'm so like, I don't feel like anybody likes my music, and because it doesn't. I don't know if it's just not. It's just my style.
I like your music.
I like your music too, Zach.
Just like, I don't know. I do feel like it's a little bit different, but
different is good.
All right.
Cool track. I think we all got good tracks. John, you want to go first?
No, I'm going to make Zach twist. No comments, just like on the live show.
It's terrible. I hate it. I'm quitting.
No. I wish I could have heard the mid bass.
What do you mean?
I'm picking that scap. You said no more comments on the mid bass because
it's pretty loud.
Okay. The piano sounds really good. The piano pattern on the second drop, the keys, I really like that. It's kind of like you already got kind of a ride, and then it gives you like, it's like you're on a ride, and then you're looking out the window and seeing something else going on. So I definitely like that. I like the arrangement. I think that also just the elements that you chose are really good. Like the guitar sounds good. The sub bass, and maybe it's the recording, was really hard to hear. So I don't know. That's why I was taking my headphones off and trying to turn it up with my monitors to see if I could get it. I don't know if something's going on with your sub bass too. So I would just look at the low end and the mid bass. I think that those are just some little dialing things you need to do in your DAW. But yeah, I like it. I think it's
it'd be interesting. I mean, it frustrates me that I don't know what's going on, that I can't just play outputs off of my computer and have John hear. But that would be something that would be interesting, is to listen to what this has gone through, because originally, like, I played it in my car and the bass was just like, I couldn't hear anything. So the latest version that you just heard is me not only changing the melody of the bass to allow more space for the instruments, but also turning the bass way down.
I can tell. Yeah. You turned it down too much.
So yeah, it's like, that is
bass is the hardest, man.
Is your kick is hitting though.
Kick is really loud. Yeah. I mean, I almost think the kick and snare, just through the low res, like they were really punching through to the point where I think they might be a little hot. But like I said, it's hard. I got to listen to it offline.
I'll send you that same link that I sent him. Well, yeah, it's unfortunately that went very quickly, the review of track section. But I think, to be honest with you, the most interesting part of this is discussing things. And I think going forward, what will be cool is to, talk through some of this stuff, like look at the DAW, look at how I have things processed. Kevin, I would love for you to take a look at how I'm processing things, or
Yeah.
talk about like what I went through with the bass with this. Like,
Yeah.
open up the spectrum, and you'll see how like I thought I had a nice balance in my spectrum, and when I took it to the car, it sounded too loud.
Yeah.
I mix
Happens to all of us.
and I mix with headphones. I mix with, that 12-inch KRK sub, and this track has two different basses at 2 different octaves. So like the idea being at the club, it'll have the low end.
Yeah.
And
It seems like a cool track. I mean, I like the vocal. It's kind of dark and brooding, I like that. I like that vibe. And you feel how about it? You feel good about it?
I feel good about it. I mean, cause like for me,
How many hours?
oh man, I don't know.
Fruity will tell you.
14. I'm going to go with, is it over or under 14 hours? Your track 14-hour days? Just wondering.
Since we don't know, well, that had to do with
Way more, I'm sure.
How much I was working, but yeah, I'm guessing more. I have to open it back up again here, but I'm guessing more. But
if it's less than 14 hours,
like
that's amazing.
Sound design, like if we went through that track and did a track breakdown, like I like the intro. I love the intro. All the sounds that I have in it, I really like, but I don't know. Still mixed. Where do you look? You go to options, project,
Project info. Very bottom.
Okay, what are the guesses?
I mean, 25, 30. I don't know.
John, what's your guess?
18.
17.
Wow.
1654 or something like that. And most of that has been on this bass, trying to wrangle the bass.
So Juicy Fruit, 19 hours and 58 minutes.
I mean, which to me is unbelievable considering how long ago did you make that track? Months
October.
Ago. Yeah, so
I haven't touched it since then.
But
You guys are fast, man. I think, like I said, I think all my knowledge, I become such a perfectionist with all my audio engineering knowledge that it just, it's a real impediment to get out of my own head and just let something go,
Yeah.
Well, and I think at least what your issue is. I know what my issue is.
Yeah.
John, I don't know how exactly you feel about it, but like, I know what my issue is. And so we can work on that.
Yeah.
Mine is I just still don't know what I'm doing.
Well, I mean,
I'm
dude,
getting
I'll
there.
tell you, what one of your main issues to begin with is like the fundamentals of your drums, because
Oh yeah, my drums, my flaming.
Your ideas
flaming
sound
of my
good,
snare.
and your drums don't sound bad. It's just they don't quite line up.
They're not clean.
I don't know what you did on Juicy Fruit, but they sounded pretty good on that. So
simple. I think it was a simple, like a drum break and not a, it was like, Zach, I think I did notice around bar 81 on your track, like 16 into the drop. I do think it's the typical thing with both of us that I think maybe the drop felt a little busy with all the different elements, and I know that's what you want in a drop, but I liked it a little better. I think the second 16 the second 16 of the first drop, when some of the elements came out, because I was looking at the playlist, and that was my one arrangement thing, was that I thought maybe playing around with the different elements and adding some elements on the second 16, as long as the drop feels good on the first 16, if you can subtract a couple elements and maybe adding some on the second 16.
Well, and this is one thing I struggle with, is like the piano is the hook. It's the lead kind of dun 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 dun. That's like the melody I get in my head when I'm walking around.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in the intro. And that's one thing that I go back and forth on. Is I like taking it out and just having the bass hit, and then having the piano come back for the next 16.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I don't know, some tutorial or talking to Algorithm or some shit I got in my head. I don't know. I go back and forth on it. But yeah, I mean, I feel you. And you know, Mike Kiss, one of the notes he's always giving people is like, he said about the first track I submitted, he liked it the most when it was like stripped down more.
Yeah.
So that's the thing about Juicy Fruit is that those elements all have spaces in them, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's like, that's what Alpha, one of the things he's good at is his music is not, a lot of his tracks aren't like that. They really, it's like the atmospherics evolve. He talks about using tons of reverb being his thing. And he would be doing this with his hands when he said
yeah.
you know, like, and so it does but yet at the same time, everything is partly because it sits in a space and the bass sounds really good, that it stays a groove and it stays interesting. So, well, all right, fellas, I know we got to get back to our families. Two of us have dinner time. One of us has the luxury of
bedtime.
Won't kill themselves if they're left alone. They'll just break their collarbone or whatever. What did Britain do recently?
His pinky.
His pinky, right?
Jumping on a trick scooter in the rain.
First rule is don't ride a scooter. But
yeah, it's pretty cool though. It's definitely got an '80s look to it. What I know we're wrapping up now. Like you wrap, like the way you're doing it. I can send out some thoughts in terms of
I mean, we'll have
next show.
We'll do that offline. But for now, you've been listening to DADnB with Kevin something.
Be determined.
What?
To be determined.
TBD.
Hey, Citizen K, what was wrong with that?
Nothing. No, it just there might be something even cooler.
All right. Well, stay tuned for the next episode of DADnB, where Kevin will reveal his new name in a world. All right. So,
Banana hammock.
Click subscribe. Hit us up on our socials. The links will be in the description.
TikTok.
You know.
If you like what you hear,
as always,
the subscribe button right here.
A lot of people have been asking me. All right.
You guys have a good
Bye,
one.
guys. See ya.
Later.